Here we go again. This is right.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Kids Are Talking. My name is Michael, and we have a great show for you today. We have a whole panel of 4 kids from all across the country. We're going to be talking about social misinformation and all the things that everyone's going through. So thanks for coming. Don't forget to like and subscribe while we get the show rolling. Follow us, and you'll get all the updates. If you're watching during the live show, please drop a comment in the thread, and we'll try to bring you into the show and address what you have to say. So thanks again for coming. And again, this is Kids Are Talking, and we're kicking it off right now.
All teenagers are going through really similar things right now because everything's crazy.
So Don, you ready for the show?
We're live again, Mike. So who knows what happens on the show when we go live?
Actually, everything happens.
Actually, I'll tell you something pretty funny. A person who saw our promo said it was they felt like we already did the show. There was a show already about this show. We seem to be having a habit of doing shows within shows.
It's the pre-show. Yeah, it's the pre-show.
Pre-show, but she told me that she felt like she would watch the show already, and she's really geared up to see what we do tonight with these kids.
Well, listen, I don't even know what they have to say because they're deep in this the Instagram culture, and I'm excited to hear what they have to say. So why don't we bring them out? I think
let's hear their story.
All right, we've got Hallie, Molly, Julia, and Nick.
All right, so there they are. Let's get them all on the there. Oh my God, there you are, live and in color. Welcome to Kids Are Talking. Nice to have all 4 of you here. Let's start with this group. This group of women here. We're going to start. I think we'll start with Molly. Molly, Munch with Mojo. That's the name of your Instagram account, right?
Yes, it is.
Tell us just briefly what is Munch with Mojo.
So my account first started out as an Instagram page where I was posting food that I was making, restaurants that I was going to at school. And then I kind of started sharing my experience with my past eating disorder, disordered eating, thoughts, things that I used to do, and how I was trying to heal my relationship with food. So after that first time that I shared that, I got so much positive feedback that since then I've just been sharing about my experience with healing my relationship with food and body image and pretty much anything that I'm struggling with that I know people can relate to and feel like they're not alone. So,
That's terrific. That's really great. How many followers do you have on your Instagram?
Like 5,600 around there.
That must feel really good.
Yes, it is.
That's really great. And thank you for coming. And what made this show feel like an important show for you to be on tonight?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
What is it about this show tonight? I mean, tonight we're talking about social media and misinformation, which is a really important show. We've done very important shows, and this is right up there with one of our most important shows. What made you want to be here tonight?
Well, social media has become a big part of my life. Not only am I on like Instagram, but now I'm on TikTok, and just trying to make all of my social media platforms as positive as possible. And I think there's a lot of people out there who social media is constantly bringing them down. And I feel like I've created a community of people that I follow and things that I post that is really positive and uplifting. So I think that there's a side of social media that is really great, but you just have to kind of form that sort of following, and the people that you follow, make sure that they're people that you want to be hearing from. So I think it's an important topic because it can be really toxic, but it can also be really awesome.
We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about the COVID paradox, about social distancing, and how actually social distancing, which was supposed to be a way to control COVID, has actually perpetuated and nurtured pathology and prolonged it. And so with your attitude and the attitude of three of you, I feel maybe we can bring some positive stuff too, because the internet has gotten some bad press, as we all know. So thanks for being here. And let's go to Hallie. Welcome.
Hi.
From New York. And Hallie, you are Life in Full Color.
Yes.
I love that. Life in Full Color. I love the name.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about what Life in Full Color means for you.
Well, Life in Full Color, my account actually started more as like a lifestyle blog where I thought I wanted to share like fashion trends, the food I was eating, the places I was traveling to. And it was like that for a month or two, actually maybe 3 months. And then I kind of realized that my passion was more so in the hands of mental health. And that's really what I wanted to be talking about. And like the accounts I followed, like Julia and Molly, were more centered around mental health. And that's truly where things resonated more for me. And I think when I first like opened up about and got vulnerable on my account was after being body shamed by a doctor. And I came out with a post. I was like holding a cake saying F, like screw body shaming. And that it really felt good for me, and it felt like very therapeutic in a way. And I honestly like love my blog. Like I see my account as like a healthy coping mechanism for me. Plus it also, I guess, like helps other people and like lets them feel like they're not alone as well.
So what kind of shaming what did this doctor do?
Basically said something to my mom about my weight that was like very uncalled for and like not even accurate, and like didn't ask about anything about me before even making a statement, and it wasn't his place.
Was he your doctor, or was he?
Yes, he was a plastic surgeon, had nothing to do with body weight.
And made a judgmental comment
And
to you.
while I was in the recovery room, it was very unprofessional and uncalled for.
Wow. I guess he's not your. What happened to him?
I actually wrote him a letter.
Wow.
So thank you, social media, for that, because I got to use social media to write that to him. And he responded and we spoke about it. But I think I would still go back to him because he's a phenomenal doctor, but obviously like taking into consideration that he might not be like the greatest person, but I still would always recommend him.
Wow. That's pretty mature.
Yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't do that. Well, thanks for being here. And you're on the show tonight to talk about mental health. Is going to be a big part of the show tonight, because how can it not be in this time we're living in?
Yeah.
And Julia, welcome back. Nice to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited.
There
to
we
be
go.
here.
The Life of Balance.
Yes.
And you're here again to be with us for what reason?
So I'm here because we're talking about social media, obviously. And in all honesty, social media has truly changed my life in a positive way. You know, I think it's the day I created my account is like, I know this sounds very dramatic, but it's the day my mindset and my life started really changing because I initially created the Life of Balance as a way to hold myself accountable to following these messages I put out because I said, hey, if I put out all these like anti-diet culture messages and all these eating disorder recovery oriented messages, I have to follow them because my favorite saying is you can't talk the talk if you're not going to walk the walk.
I like that.
It really just held me accountable. But then as more people started following and I found other people who were doing similar things to me, the whole purpose of the account kind of changed where I no longer use it to hold myself accountable, but more to like document my journey and also try to help others.
We're going to talk about documenting the journey. We're going to do that
Yeah.
later because I would assume, am I right, that you all are trying to document a journey?
Yeah,
And
it's a lot of documentation.
And the importance of documenting a journey is what?
Why do I do it?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it started out just if I documented, I'm holding myself accountable. But now it's just to be honest and show others what I'm going through. I think I almost get this sense of comfort when I post something and people message me saying they can relate or how it's helpful. And knowing that, like, me documenting, because I do document a lot of happy things, like when I'm happy, but I also show a lot of really tough moments. And it just feels good to know that other
That's really
people know this is a real person and not some just like fake person who has their life together.
I think Nick likes that. You like that, Nick? I'm going to introduce Nick. You like that, huh, Nick? I see you
Yeah.
smiling and bobbing that head. You like what you just said?
Yeah, it's a good balance. I guess that makes sense with the name of the account too.
So let me introduce you because we got you at the 11th hour, and I'm really appreciate that you came here from California, from San Francisco, right? And we have you on here tonight because, well, let's introduce you. What I know about you, you write for Psychology Today,
Mm-hmm.
and is it neuroscience that you're involved in?
Yeah, I studied neuroscience for a while, and I still write about it.
You still write about it. And what else about you should we know before we go any further?
Well, is it Don or Dr. Don?
Call me Don, Dr. Don, whatever you want to call me is okay.
Don. Yeah. Well,
Don
thanks
is
for having
fine.
me on. Yeah, thanks for having me on the show.
Thanks for being here, Nick.
Any friend of Michael's a friend of mine.
Well, and it's funny, you look and remind me of a young man we've had on the show. You look like you're his older brother. So
You'll have to send me a picture.
yeah, his name was Chris. Julia knows Chris, and some of you who've been watching the show know Chris, and he's been on our show. And it's flipped me out when I saw you tonight because I thought, my God, is this Chris's older brother? Or it's really amazing. And so you came on because you see the importance of this particular subject, even though I understand you're not involved in the internet. Is that true?
Within like social media, yeah.
Yeah.
No, not in particular. But I mean, Michael asked me to come on the show, and I was interested to see what this was all about, and I'm happy I'm here.
You're not a Luddite.
No,
You just
Definitely
don't.
not.
Just don't do social media.
right.
I used to be called a Luddite. I've had to get a little more sophisticated. My grandchildren and my kids got on me, so at least I can do this now. And thank God I can do this because that's what we're talking about tonight, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you think about what these girls are doing and what they're talking about?
I mean, yeah, you can't knock it. It's definitely an avenue, social media, that people can create really positive things with and use it to connect with other people who want to either subscribe to their story, relate to them, or maybe even just like what they do. So I think that's a really positive part of social media. And I don't abstain or not use it because I particularly think that it's a negative thing. It's really a lifestyle choice.
And the reason why you don't do it is,
I mean, most of my friends are on text message and in the area, and maybe I'm just a little bit of a good old boy in that sense, but I spend a lot of time writing, editing on the computer. So anytime I get free, I'm usually with my dog or my girlfriend outside.
so here's the thing. There's a story that none of us know, and that's a story of the three of you. Did you know each other? How did this relationship between the three of you come about?
We met through social media.
You met on social, isn't that something, Nick? They met on social media, and then
Yeah.
you became friends. And have you ever physically been in the same place and had time together?
Me and
Julia.
Hallie have.
You had a reunion. You had actually a physical reunion.
Yeah,
Not
we got
with
ice
me.
cream.
What reunion?
I wasn't there, but they
Oh.
saw each other.
Oh, so you weren't there. So you haven't had that experience.
No, sadly.
Well, that's really nice. How long has it lasted, the three of you?
Well, I've known Molly since the day I started my account.
Wow.
So October. And Hallie, when did we start talking?
Okay, so I actually looked at the first time like I messaged both of you. I messaged Julia the first time on October 29th. and Molly, I think we were messaging since like mid-September. And that's how long I've known them.
So you're a really good, three of you are a good example, Nick, right, of what social media can be a good thing.
Absolutely.
Let me tell you what I want to discuss with you, Nick, because we only have you for a certain amount of time tonight. What I'm disturbed about is that my understanding is the history of media, it started as a very positive thing. Everybody was getting cozy with it, a nice place to communicate, get along. But now it's kind of, there's a piece of it, and you three are not representing that. And obviously, Nick, you don't represent that. But it's gone. Where do we draw the line between free speech and hate culture, hate language? I'm really disturbed. I mean, Donald Trump is not even allowed on the internet now. Okay. And all these things, the insurrection, of course, in the Capitol, the vaccination thing that's going on all over the country, the misinformation that's being passed on. And here we have a place where people in social media started off thinking, yeah, this will give us community, a place of belonging, a really good thing. And now look where we are, Nick. So what's your feeling about that?
Well, I think that, like any media, social media starts by garnering attention. It's an attention market. Mm-hmm. So it's really up to the user to navigate, And with social media, it's a little harder to distinguish your sources. It's really more about the weight behind the content. And I think it's kind of obvious that polarizing headlines catch our eyes. It's what we want to see. It's what we like to do. Not everyone is on the internet just looking at pictures of dogs, although might be fun.
So how have we gone astray? I'll ask you, Nick, and then I'll ask the three of you. What happened to us? I mean, how have we gone from a thing that started off so nice and friendly and with great intentions, and the things that obviously Molly and Julia and Hallie are doing are really good things? Where did we go astray? What do you think the reason is why that's happened?
In part, it's fascinating to people, whether it's a conspiracy theory or just straight up misinformation. It's a headline that we find interesting because we're attached to the narrative, and social media does change language in that way. It makes it extremely relatable, and that appeal to narrative can definitely outweigh rationality. And everyone wants to be a part of a story, and there's always going to be a counter to it. So I think it's kind of a natural part of humanity that gets expanded with media, globalized media.
So Molly, what do you think about all the conspiracy theories that are going on the internet, the anti-vaccination, the insurrection, the meme culture, all of that? What do you think is the root of that?
I mean, I don't really know how it went from such a nice place to becoming this like place where there's a lot of hate also. But I agree with Nick. I think that some people just are doing it for attention and some type of like polarizing post. While it might get a lot of hate comments, it's still a lot of people are still going to that post and they're sharing their opinion. So something like a creator that's making something that's super polarizing, they're going to get a lot of attention for it. And I think the more the more people put out these like crazy things, the more followers that they're going to get that are on their side. And then they're going to start just like believing everything that person says. But then also maybe the more hate comments they're going to get. But I think that type of person isn't really going to care as much what type of hate they're getting, because they're just probably the type of person that is not going to listen to other people's opinions and just like has their opinion set in stone. So they're just trying to have these radical ideas and not actually hear other people's side of the story. But I'm not really sure how it got to that point.
We're going to try to figure that out tonight.
Yeah.
And Julie, what do you think?
I think people like to be controversial on the internet a lot of the time just for clout, because a lot of people will get famous for being controversial and they'll say things that they know will make people mad. And I don't know if the reason why they do that is because they actually care about the issue they're talking about, or if it's just this self-centered goal they have to be famous or make it big. Because, for example, I'm just thinking of TikTok right now. You'll see some crazy things on TikTok and I'll wonder why. Like, why did this person put out this video? Like, who's it benefiting? But then I go and I see they're gaining followers every day. People are making videos about that person. It just boosts almost in a way your ego because you're getting more attention.
So there's a lot of, Nick, you're shaking your head on a lot of negative attention, right, Nick?
The word ego.
What about the word ego?
I just agreed with what she said. I think that's a big part of it.
So we've got over here, we've got Hallie, who's very interested in psychology and mental health. And I'm glad we have your perspective tonight, because I don't want to carry the whole mental health baton tonight. So I'd be interested to hear what you think about what has made us go so astray and have all this conspiracy theory. You know, I would actually say in some ways, one could say the internet is almost promoting totalitarianism and influences that are really creating a very almost a Middle Eastern feeling. We're creating, like in the old days, you know, we were reading about the terrorists in the Middle East and how they were being trained to hate. It seems like that's happening in America now. What's your feeling about this discussion?
You know, another scary thing about social media and like a dangerous thing is that it's a way for people to hide behind a screen and say these sometimes crazy things. And it's like half the people or more than half the people saying these things wouldn't actually say it in real life. And that's why the internet is so dangerous in a way. But I'm trying to think like where it went so astray. And I know it's gotten much worse now. And because these apps are becoming so much more popular, because the apps have figured out a way to make their platforms addicting for people to get so hooked on it. But I remember like when I first started going on social media, I don't know if you guys ever were familiar with this website. It was called Ask FM.
No, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
It's basically this like anonymous website where you can like send in anonymous questions or something. It's supposed to be innocent, but it basically turned into like a cyberbullying platform for people. When I was like in middle school, that's what was going on. And then you'd go to school the next day and like everyone would be talking about everyone's Ask FM, and it was not a thing. And like that was years ago. So I'm like, I've always seen like this scary side to social media. I definitely see it more now because I'm on it more. And like there's more people on it. And they figured out ways to be so controversial and figured out ways to get clout from it somehow, like how Julia was saying. But I really think it has always been an issue.
Even before COVID.
Yes.
So there was a great article in the New York Times that I want to ask you about, Nick, and pass it around and have a discussion about it. The name of the article in the New York Times is "Loneliness is Breaking America." Very powerful. I recommend you read this article because it really gets to, I think, the root of some of the reasons why we are where we are. And so my feeling is, which I actually agree with the article, is that we are a lonely country, that people are lonely. And it was before COVID. And I don't know what's going on in San Francisco, Nick, because I hear San Francisco's changed a lot. And that is internet land, right? Silicon Valley, right? I mean, I lived in San Francisco like over 40 years ago. I know it's not the same place, but is loneliness, people's isolation, and of course COVID exacerbated that, but is loneliness part of what are making people just like they were in the Middle East, in terms of, and even baby boomers are, now that they're retired, and there's been some thought that people now are just looking to belong and find some kind of meaning. If you look at what happened at the Capitol, the insurrection, who would have ever thought that would happen in the United States, right? But what do we think about loneliness is a root of where we've gone astray. So Nick, why don't you take a shot at that?
Well, Don, I am a little jealous that you got to live in San Francisco 40 years ago. That must have been fun.
It was really great. It was real. I lived in Marin. I lived in Mill Valley. In the hot tub. In the hot tub.
Yeah.
Free and easy, spiritual, creative, not as much homeless. It was a nice, but tell me why you think that was better then.
I think the culture hasn't changed much in Marin. You might be surprised. Well, I think,
tub, huh?
yeah.
Redwood, of course. Redwood.
Yeah, except you got to book ahead now to get into Muir Woods. Loneliness is, you're right. It's a bit of a paradox in the modern day. We're so globalized, and it's so easy to start a life in another town, and whether you're there physically or, digitally. And at the same time, people are finding themselves living more alone, young people living alone. I mean, I live here with my girlfriend and my dog, and I feel like the pandemic has actually brought a lot of people in our area back to their family, moving in with their parents again, at least during the lockdown. I moved back in with my mom for a period of time during the pandemic to be closer to her, and I really valued that. So to think about if I had been completely alone, it would be painful. It's not just like a psychological thing, loneliness. It actually hurts. And
do you think it makes you more susceptible to some, this influences that people are, going in a bad way, trying to join? Like, how do you explain conspiracy theory? I think a lot of people that are vulnerable in conspiracy theory are lonely. They're not well.
That's $1 million question, why people get so fascinated with conspiracy theories. I mean, I feel like we all have at some point. I know I have. To the point that I would act on it, I'm not sure. There's definitely a part of it that's just truly fascinating to humans. We love the idea of something counterculture, something that breaks our reality norms. But at the same time, maybe loneliness does play a factor on people acting on it. But it could also just be that's their thing,
Well, what do you think, Julia, about this? Do you think it's their thing, or it's even the vaccinations? I mean, come on. I mean, like all the stuff that's on social media now about encouraging people not to get vaccinated, and the whole thing in the Capitol. I mean, like, what made people feel like that's okay? I mean, were they incited by the?
I don't think it's loneliness, if we're being honest.
Okay.
I think it's insecurity. I don't know. I mean, you can be insecure about being lonely, but I think the root of anything hateful you see on the internet is insecurity, because I think, like, I don't really believe humans are born bad, but then if you have something that I shouldn't have given that analogy. That doesn't really relate, or maybe it does. Okay. So it's like you have a person, and then if you're insecure, that's why you're going to go hate to try and make yourself feel better. So, for example, if someone's putting out content saying, don't get vaccinated, oh, it's because they're insecure about the vaccine and they don't want to get vaccinated, and they're scared about maybe what can happen if the rest of the world, I don't know. I really don't see reason for hate on the internet unless a person is struggling with an issue themselves.
So, Molly, what do you think about that? You want to say something, Mike?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking, I mean, isn't the oh, here, I'm behind your head over here. Isn't the problem with the misinformation is that we don't know where it's coming from. So if someone comes out and says, "Oh, don't take the vaccine," well, why? Who's told you that? Where did that information come from? And people say, "Well, I heard it." And then if enough people just start repeating things, they don't even. I think Nick spoke to this. they don't. There's no source. There's no authoritative source that's giving that information. It's just spreading virally, and that's how the misinformation is just propagating.
Yeah, I keep focusing on the root, Molly. I want to ask you, and also Hallie, I want to ask you. So Julia thinks it's insecurity. There's a thin line between loneliness and insecurity, because loneliness can make you insecure. So Molly, what do you think about that QAnon thing going on? We've got all this hate culture going on. This was a love fest with the three of you when you met, and when the internet and social media was created, it was to be communal, and now it's become flirting with totalitarianism in some areas, and really negative, destructive forces. Do you think it's loneliness, insecurity? What do you think it is?
I think definitely the people that are putting out anything hate related, or like if one of us were to get a hate comment, it's just them reflecting off of their insecurities. So I definitely agree with like hate comments coming from insecurity. But the whole QAnon, those groups that are the conspiracy theory groups, I think it definitely could stem from loneliness. And then if they get like really far into that, now they're finding this community in all believing in all of that. So I think it would make sense that the loneliness is kind of the root for that kind of thing, because then they're finding their people who also believe in that.
Well, this is what happened. This is what happened in the Middle East. I almost think we're in a civil war of sorts right now. Hallie, what do you think? I want your psychological, mental health expertise on this subject.
Well, first of all, I'm not a psychologist. I just want to state that for anyone.
But you're interested in mental health. I want your psychological. You don't need to be a psychologist to have insight.
I am interested, yes. I definitely agree with Molly. I think people really do probably feel lonely and insecure. A mixture of what Julia and Molly are saying. Come on the internet and get attention, first of all, which I think like feeds to their loneliness and like helps them feel better in a way. It's not the best way, obviously, but it's what we're seeing. And yeah, I definitely think a big part of the hate on the internet comes from people's own problems with themselves or insecurity, or just like any self-hate is then portrayed onto other people. And the hate comments that we see online from our accounts as well, it's usually that person's going through something, and it's usually has nothing to do with you. It's mostly about that person.
Well, so I guess we're saying we all need validation. Nick, can you stay a couple of minutes more, or do you have to go?
Yeah, I can stay for a few more minutes.
I want to ask you, because you don't seem to be very invested in social media. And one of the things that I think people say about social media, and it's coming up in this conversation, is people's need to be validated, to get attention, to be heard. So what do you think? I mean, do you think that, why do you don't, what is it in you that don't feel a need to do social media?
Personally, it's just time consuming. Yeah.
It is time consuming, is it? Yeah, I guess so.
It's a hobby, right? Everyone's got hobbies. For some people, I guess it could be a job. I mean, if it's your job, then who cares what people say? It's your way of living. But in terms of hobbies, everyone's got a different one. So for me, that's really the big difference. I mean, if social media became an outlet for me, or just an avenue for something else, maybe it would be the right thing. But at the end of the day, when I'm taking some free time to do something, it's not that. I'm probably going surfing. Maybe I'll read a book. Maybe I'll go see my friends. I don't know. It just depends on what your personal situation is. Like you're talking about with.
Got them close together. They met. That's a positive thing, right?
Yeah. Or loneliness itself. I mean, if you really are isolated and you didn't have social media, then what are you going to stare at a wall all day? I mean, it can be a good avenue for people. Maybe sometimes we put it in a negative context when it's just the best option that someone has. And I wanted to ask you, I think it's interesting you said that social media was created as a positive impulse, a positive connection for people. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that.
Who are you asking that question to?
To you, Don.
To me, I actually, that's what I've read. That's what I've heard. Actually, the article that I quoted was talking about that. Is another article I'm going to quote later on. That I think, am I right, girls? That is the was the beginning of the intentions of, you would know probably better than me, Julie, you think that was the original intention of the internet? I guess that's the next question.
I think the internet probably was first created just to get information.
Mm-hmm.
I think social media came later.
But
Social media, I think, was first used just as a way to connect with others.
Yeah, I mean, I think we don't want to confuse the internet with social media,
right?
Because I think the internet was invented for governmental.
For information.
I think it was originally invented so the government could communicate if certain communication channels got taken down, like phone lines and stuff.
Right.
But I know Facebook was originally invented as a way for like college. I think it was college alumni kids were trying to just connect with their alumni so they didn't lose track after they graduated.
But yeah, that's true. The social media came later, as you're saying.
Right.
But Nick, your question is that how would I've read and heard from other people. What do you think, Molly? Do you think that social media, the goal of social media originally was to have a love fest, communal connection, sharing, and just, is that what it was in your opinion?
Yeah, I think that I'm pretty sure Facebook came before Instagram. Yeah, I think so. So I feel like Facebook.
There was MySpace.
Oh, yes.
Mike is saying MySpace.
Yes, it was MySpace, and then it became Facebook, and I feel like that was just definitely had intentions of just connecting with people, and like I know my parents still like to use it to connect with their college friends that they don't see as often, and but then it just kind of turned into like Instagram was a platform where you only shared pictures, whereas like Facebook, you could share, like you could just kind of send out a little message or say happy birthday to people. But Instagram has definitely become a place where like all you're scrolling through are pictures of people. And I think the intent behind it probably was positive, but anytime you're scrolling through a bunch of pictures of other people, there's going to be a bunch of comparison, which I think can be negative for certain people, especially if someone is insecure and lonely. If you're just scrolling through Instagram and seeing that all these people are doing fun things and you're not doing those fun things, then that can make you feel even worse about your life situation. So
and that's what we're talking about a lot tonight. The FOMO thing, right? The fear of missing out, right? I mean, what do you think, Hallie, about what we're talking about and what's being said here?
Well, I definitely agree with what Molly was saying, that at first I think it was just that social media was created for people to connect. And then it really has now turned into, people are still definitely connecting on social media, but it's more of a way of people like flaunting their lives or just showing like who they're with and what they're doing, versus actually like connecting with people. I saw someone wrote in the chat something about research has found that people form stronger bonds when they're able to talk about their dislike towards someone else, which I definitely think is true. And that's why, going back to what we were saying before, people form bonds on the internet that aren't always the healthiest. And it's like the same thing we see with friend groups at times. Like friend groups will talk about a certain person just so that they can all become closer with each other. And I definitely think that that's a big thing online.
But let's look at the fact that it's interesting that Facebook and Instagram don't have a thumbs down, right? They don't have it, but YouTube has a thumbs down. Why does YouTube have a thumbs down and Facebook and Instagram do not have a thumbs down? Anybody want to take a respond to that?
People wouldn't use Instagram or Facebook if it had a thumbs down. You know, no one's really posting on YouTube unless you're like a content creator and that's what you're trying to do. But Instagram and Facebook, you could say, is just for ordinary people sharing their lives. And why would someone want to share their life if they're going to get
a thumbs down
feedback? Yeah.
And how come YouTube is okay with a thumbs down? How come YouTube does that? Anybody? Hallie?
I think they've just always done that. I don't know why they do that, honestly. Like, I'm surprised that hasn't been a topic where people are like, let's eliminate the thumbs down, like how Instagram took away you seeing the likes, which I think they just added back now, right? I don't know.
Is that
But,
true? I'm not sure. I'm not sure
I'm
about
not
that.
sure, yeah.
Does anybody know that?
You can choose. You can choose whether or not to show your likes to other people. So some people may turn off the feature so that no one else can see how many likes they get. But then you also can turn it off for yourself. So like, I'm pretty sure that you could turn it off so that you never see anyone's likes.
Do we think that social media is a highlight reel?
yes.
It's a highlight reel. And why do we need what's behind social media needing to be a highlight reel?
Well, it's like, I think when you look at someone's social media page, that's your first impression of that person. So why would someone want to share a photo that they don't like of themselves? Or like if they're taking a picture, even just of a sunset, why would they want to share the ugly picture? It's just, you want to present yourself. I'm doing like quotes in the best way possible. So you're just highlighting your favorite aspects of yourself.
I love that you guys are bringing the positive aspect of social media, because we're getting so much now, such horrible stuff about social media.
Well, it's not necessarily positive that it's a highlight reel.
Well, what is it then? Sharing, wanting to,
Well,
share.
social media causes a lot of problems because it is a highlight reel.
Tell us what that means, Julia.
Because it's not real. It's like you take 1,000 photos and you like one and you post the one that you like. But what about the 999 ones where you don't feel too good? And
yeah, and so are we a mass cult? We certainly were literally a mass culture for a year and a half. Are we still a mass culture, or we have trouble unmasking and being real and sharing more of the stuff that's not so wonderful? What do you think, Hallie?
Well, I think adding on to what Julia's saying is like when you look on Instagram or something like that, like you're seeing everyone's best part, the best part of everyone's life, and you have no clue what's going on behind the scenes. But it's hard to remind yourself of that all the time when you're scrolling and all you're seeing is like, oh, right, this person's there, like this person looks like they're living the best life, or like this is the best photo of someone and it probably has like 300 filters on it. Right. And so you start comparing yourself to it, and then you can like get down the road where you're like, oh, I kind of feel like a failure compared to this person. But if you take yourself back a step and you put yourself back into reality, it's like, oh wait, like this is just this person's Instagram, like this isn't their life. I used to have as my like Instagram bio like the short line, like this is my Instagram, not my life, because it's not, like you never know what's going on behind the scenes. Like everyone has their shit. Sorry, I don't know if I can, but
you can share. You go ahead.
It's all right. No one's going to censor you for saying
I think, Hallie, it's like the holding image that we had right when we were loading the show. The mirror is seeing, that's what social media is, and everybody has a bite taken out of their ass, but no one's sharing that on social media.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so it's really Molly, what do you think about what we're talking about?
Well, what I was just gonna say is that I think that our 3 accounts, though, we do a really good job of showing the moments that like not most people would show. Like yesterday, I literally put up a story of me crying because I don't want to just show the highlight reel. I don't want to just show that this journey is easy, because it's not. And I think that we do a really good job of showing that like not highlight reel and reminding everyone that this is a long process and this is not always happy.
What'd you say, Mike?
It just makes it a highlight of your sadness.
Well, I think that's the problem in this country, frankly. We probably would have less problems if people allowed themselves to realize that being sad and being imperfect was really okay.
Yeah.
It's normal. It's like, it's emotions that we should face. And there's this big stigma behind it. I mean, I remember when I first created my account, The Life of Balance, and I was sharing all these very vulnerable details about my life. Like, it's crazy because you truly can see this whole like journey for me. You can see me getting my first period after losing it for 2 years to now, like where I get it every month, like you really see my life on it. And I remember when I first started my page, a lot of my family was like, Julia, do you really want to be putting that out on the internet? Like, oh, God forbid people see that and know that about you. But it's like, oh, so people can't know the real me?
That's beautiful. I love that. Isn't that, Nick, that's pretty brave? What do you think about this, Nick? What about these three women? What do you think about what they're saying? I think that's really cool, Julie. I think that it's brave to put out the dark side, not just the light side.
Yeah,
To unmask. We've been masking for a year and a half. Now we're talking about maybe there's some value in unmask. Maybe we'd have less cyberbullying and less anti-vaxxers and less insurrections if people would deal with their darker side, right? What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with what you're saying. I am curious I guess I could ask everyone so there's obviously a side of the internet that we haven't been paying as much attention to, and that is like troll culture, pranking, things like that. Like on YouTube, that's really how YouTube got its whole comment life starting, is through trolling and things like that.
Right, the trolling. I'm glad you brought that up.
Do you think that there's a relationship between that culture and then things like anti-vax misinformation and QAnon and phenomenon like that?
It's a great question. Molly, you want to take a crack at that? I want all three of you to take a crack at that. That's a great question, Chris.
I feel like
Chris? I just called you Chris. I told you. I got a problem with this. I think you're related. Maybe Chris is watching you right now. Okay, go ahead, Molly.
I feel like it would kind of make sense, I guess, if those trolls are kind of put into the same category as those people that are believing in all these conspiracy theories, because clearly they are just needing to clearly a lot of them are insecure, so that's why they're a troll and they're making someone else feel bad. And if they're really insecure, then maybe they're really lonely, and then that is what leads them to a group that is liking all of these conspiracy theories. So I could see how they could be kind of in the same group, but yeah, I'm not really sure. I've only gotten a couple hate comments before, and I just kind of brushed it off because I'm clearly this person doesn't know me, and clearly they're really insecure about themselves. So,
Hallie, what do you think? That's true. This insecure thing is coming up a lot tonight, isn't it? Self-esteem, how you feel about yourself, loneliness, all of it. But Molly, what do you have to say about this?
Me or Molly? Me. Okay.
Hallie, go ahead. Sure. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Molly, smile.
I don't really see a lot of trolls, honestly. I'll get random direct messages on Instagram, which I'm sure you guys, Molly and Joel, you probably receive as well. But basically what Instagram does is filters it out into a separate inbox where it's a request, and you just know that it's not a real account. You click on their account, they aren't following, or they're following 1,000 people, have no followers, seems just very sketchy, and whatever they're saying doesn't seem right. So I always just block that person and delete it. But that's my only experience really with trollers right now. I'm not active on YouTube, but I remember back when I was younger, I would hear more about robots and trolls, but yeah, I'm not experiencing that now.
Julia, what do you think about this conversation?
I'm the same. I'm really not educated on the topic. I don't even know if it's as popular of a thing anymore. I've definitely, I don't really get hate comments on Instagram. My TikTok definitely gets more hate and controversial comments, but I wouldn't say the people commenting are trolls. It's just a person who sees my video and doesn't like it.
Nick, are you getting your answer, Nick, to your question?
It was an open-ended question. I think maybe I had intended to explore the misinformation avenue.
Yeah, I think on that, I remember when there was the whole Israeli conflict, there was big content creators and accounts that a lot of people thought they could trust. They shared these infographics with misinformation. And then people who were oh, I love this account, didn't really do the research and just saw that they posted this trendy looking infographic and then reposted it to their stories. And now all of a sudden you have this huge chain of misinformation going around, and that's scary. And I was just about to say, don't believe everything you read on the internet. Like it's hard sometimes. Like you can learn a lot on the internet, but there's also, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. It's like what I always say.
As long as you're not vulnerable and insecure and lonely. Molly, what do you think? What do you want? Anything you want to add to this conversation?
I mean, yeah, definitely during that time, I actually chose not to share any infographics because I wanted to educate myself on the topic before just like putting out or just like sharing someone else's story. And I didn't know if what they were sharing was correct. And I actually got a lot of DMs saying that they really appreciated that because there was just so much misinformation going out there. So I think when there's kind of like this, whatever it is, out in the world, what Israeli conflict, whatever it is, I think it's most important for content creators to actually educate themselves on the topic first before putting out any information, because they're probably not an expert on the topic. And when you're sharing, when you have a huge platform and you're sharing this like really political thing or whatever it is, I think it's most important to educate yourself first.
So the New York Times put out another powerful article in the Week in Review on Sunday. The title of it is "No Wonder We Crave Internet Justice." How are we going to solve this problem? What ideas would you have for us to create a platform and a vibe in this country to stop the cyberbullying, the influencing of insurrections and QAnon and anti-vaxxers? What do we do? Because one of my questions would be, is it important to have followers? How does it feel like to have followers? I mean, what is that? Does that matter in what you're all doing?
It's weird. Like, it's really weird knowing that people follow. I still get all nervous all the time when I think about it.
Really? How come you get nervous from that? Because it seems like a really important thing.
I mean, it's like I have more followers on the Life of Balance than I do on my personal Instagram account. You know, it's a very weird thing to think that there could be people in another country who know my name and know that I cried over something like the other day and I don't even know who the person is. And in a weird way, it's like really sad to me that sad. I'm using the word sad that I don't know the people. And that makes me nervous. Like, I don't know. It's scary.
But does it feel good that you're moving somebody and having maybe some influence and inspiration?
Yeah, it feels amazing.
Making a difference, like giving some justice to using social media and combating misinformation.
That's always talk about how my account changed. It started just for me solely. When I created it, I had the intention of only helping myself, but it's really not about that anymore. Because like, as I've gained more followers, I've seen, okay, this is not just my journey. It's like all of our journeys. Like,
that's great.
You know,
that's, I think, a great way to maybe combat this article that was quoted in the New York Times. How about you, Molly? What do you think about what Julie's saying with your followers, and what does it mean for you?
Yeah, I was the same way. At the beginning, I was just sharing my own journey and everything that was happening to me. And with that, now I get messages from people actually all over the world that sometimes there's a bit of a language barrier, but they're trying their best to DM me in English and share their story. And it's really, really, it's really awesome. But kind of like Julia was saying, it is a little bit scary sometimes because you know, I'm just a kid going through the same things as them, and I'm not any sort of professional. I would like to be one in the future where I can give actual professional advice. But, you know, a lot of people out there share very deep things with me, and sometimes it's a lot to take on. So as much as I love having a following, it's also a lot sometimes because I'm not trained to just like take in other people's struggles and know what to do with that and know what kind of advice to give. So it gets scary because I don't want to give like the wrong kind of advice to anyone.
You are fantastic.
Molly,
What's that?
Molly, I don't know if you've ever done this, but there have been times where I've had to actually like say, I'm not a professional and I don't know how to answer that question because,
Yes.
and I never, like when people message me, I never quickly respond. Like I always do it at nighttime and I'm like sitting down in bed and it's like a whole little thing for me because I don't know, these are people opening up and confiding. And
Yeah.
I get, like Molly said, I'm so scared I'm going to say the wrong thing because like, to myself, I say the wrong thing. So why wouldn't I say it to someone else by accident?
Yeah, many times I just say that I can give them accounts that are professionals and lead them in a right way or try to tell them that they should talk to a professional. But many times I have to just say I cannot answer that question.
You're on the show tonight doing a great job. What do you think about this, Hallie?
Oh, we lost
you,
Hallie.
Hallie.
We lost your sound, Hallie.
Oh, here we are. Can you hear me?
Oh, there you are. We got you back much better than the ADHD show. My God, thank God, Mike. Thank God. Go ahead.
I was saying that I agree with what Julia and Molly are saying. I've definitely received messages from people opening up about very personal things and like asking for advice for it. And I always like want to help them. I feel like that's like the person I am. I feel like that's the people you guys are as well. And it makes me sad sometimes when I share something very vulnerable about myself and other people can relate to it. I'm like, it gives me comfort knowing that I'm not alone, but it also makes me sad knowing that like you have to feel this way too sometimes. But a lot of the times I try my best to just like share from personal experience. I always try to say like, I am not a professional. And I also do send other accounts who are ran by professionals to people. And in terms of like followers, you know, I really don't think like numbers define you. Like for me with my account, like I have a lot less followers than Julia and Molly, but similar with all of our accounts, I believe like the community that I have on Life in Full Color is like so special to me. And I've made so many good friends like Molly and Julia through my account, which like means the world to me. And whenever I go on there and share something, I know like I have this like crew behind me who's gonna reach out and will be there for me and can relate. And I think that's the most important thing. I think it's really about like the quality of your following.
Nick, are you going to go on social media after this show, after meeting these three women? What do you think about what they're saying? Pretty amazing, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably not myself personally, but I'm really enjoying their message. And I didn't know that you all knew each other before this, but now I can kind of see that. And it's really cool that the three of you have created what you have from social media and that you have something positive to say. And also that you have a balance to strike with it as well. I think that social media should be something that everyone can use in a positive way. So,
is San Francisco really different now, Nick, or were you just kidding me before about like it's the social media capital of the world, isn't it? I mean, is it different because of that? I've heard some not such good things about Silicon Valley.
A lot of people are moving out of the area, that's for certain. A lot of the people in tech are moving out too. So. The culture has definitely changed. I mean, when you think about what culture is, though, in a pandemic, it's really different. Like, you can't go out and see live music in a city.
Oh, we lost him.
What happened to Nick?
We lost him.
Oh, my God. He was saying something that I've been waiting to ask him all night, and he's gone. All right. Well,
here he is.
Is he back? Nick, are you back? Ah, you're back, Nick. Thank God. Yeah. My ADHD terror is over. Go ahead.
No, but I don't think the essence of San Francisco has changed. I mean, it's hard. It's hard. There's a lot of the local communities that get displaced because of technology. It's really expensive. Like I have to work many jobs to pay rent here, but that's just how the times roll. I guess San Francisco will always have that classic style underneath it.
So maybe you can become a social media influencer.
Maybe you become social media. Now we can see that this we can combat misinformation if we have more leaders.
We can combat misinformation with good journalism, I think.
So we have good 3 journalists on here tonight with their Instagram accounts and trying to do good things. What do you think from watching them tonight, listening?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't think they're playing any bit of role in misinformation. I don't think misinformation, it's kind of a blanket term. In reality, we're talking about it in the sense that it's something vital you need to understand, like, should I get vaccinated? And then a matter of, can I access the right information to make that decision? Because I don't know anything about vaccines. So these girls are telling a positive story and connecting in a very humanistic, and it's like a natural impulse for people to do that. And I think that
Julie,
it'll always be that way.
Well, I would say in a way, our accounts kind of do combat certain misinformation, not vaccines or any of the crises going on overseas. But like, for example, me and Molly in particular, and Hallie touches on it as well, and other topics about like diet culture. And we combat a lot of the things diet culture says and tries to claim as healthy. And we sometimes will even use science in our captions, and we do try to combat it and show why what diet culture says is not okay.
That's great. So
we do it in our own niche.
That's great. That's really great. Very briefly, because we're ending the show now, I'd like each one of you, we do this traditionally on Kids Are Talking, just each one of you, Julie, we can start with you, is like, what would be the one thing you'd want to pass on to people watching the show tonight in terms of...
I hate when you put me on the spot for this. Okay.
Well, yeah, you were talking, so I figured I'd start with you first.
What would I pass on?
What would be your message, or your take home for tonight's show?
Yeah, I feel like we've talked a lot about tonight about misinformation. So I would say, don't believe everything you see on the internet, but our accounts, I believe our accounts. So
don't have anyone except me, right, Julia?
I would say take everything with a grain. Take everything with a grain of salt. You know, you can use your best judgment. Know some stuff is true, some stuff isn't. It's really, you need to just be smart when you're on social media. Know what you're following.
There you go, Nick. That's kind of what you were saying a little while. Is that what would be your message?
Well, my message would kind of be unrelated. I'd say, remember Molly's quote from earlier, "I'm just a kid." I love that. I feel like it really fits with the show. And yeah, it can be really, you can really like you can get knee deep in a lot of really serious stuff on the internet. But if you're just a kid, then you can also stay on the happy side. Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Molly? It's your turn to respond to that one and tell us, you're smiling from that one, huh?
Yeah, it just feels nice that you heard what I said.
Nice to be heard. Nice to be validated and heard.
Yes. But what I would say is that there is a part of social media that you can create your own positive experience, and it doesn't have to be a negative place that every time you're scrolling through, you're feeling bad about yourself. Like, you have the power to change who you follow and what kind of information that you're seeing. And especially when there's big things going on in the world, I would maybe step away from social media and try to find actual like educational articles out there that you can kind of form your own opinion on, and not necessarily just take everything on Instagram and believe everything that you see, because that could lead to some bad things. But yes, it was definitely a
great message. And Hallie, we want to end the show with you. You get the last word tonight.
Wow. Well, I love what everyone else said, and I want to just go back quickly to what you're saying about the highlight reel, and that would be my message here. Just that, remember that everything that you see on social media is usually a highlight reel. Maybe not the stuff that the three of us always post, but I feel like we're more of like a refreshing account compared to other people on the internet. And just don't compare yourself, because you don't know the full story.
And don't always feel like you're missing something.
Yeah. It's usually never as good as it looks online. Thing might look so fun, and then you ask the person the next day and they're like, it was terrible. And you're like, you wouldn't have known. You would have thought you were missing out, but it wasn't great.
My message would be, know that there's a mask, and underneath the mask, we unmask.
Yeah.
And that's literally true in America. We're trying to unmask because of these, if people get vaccinated, and we even emotionally and metaphorically need to unmask. But thank you so much, Julia, Hallie, Molly, Nick, Mike.
Yeah, thanks everybody for. I think we had a great discussion. I don't know if we found the truth, but at least maybe we found a way to get to the truth.
I love that, Mike. Well put. Wow, how about that guy? Wow, that's pretty good. I like that. That's a great way to end. All of us are kids are talking. You were amazing. Such a good role model. Great role models. Great messages, and positive. And it's nice to have something positive for change, Mike. Right?
Yeah. Well, that's what I think. That's what at their heart, I think that's what most people want to get out of social media, something positive.
And you were I think these three girls were so good that we kept Nick on for the full hour.
Yeah, he wanted to leave, but he couldn't get away.
He couldn't leave you, right, Nick? You were to stay a half hour and you didn't leave.
Absolutely.
And Chris is watching.
Okay, well, that's
right.
the end of our show today.
Thanks, guys.
So
thank you so
tune
much.
in, everybody that's watching, all the people that made it this far. Thank you so much. We have another great show coming up next week, and you'll hear a little bit about that as the time goes on. And from all of us at Kids Are Talking, Kids Are Talking.
We'll see you backstage, right? See you backstage.